Good afternoon. This is the In My Opinion show, seen on YouTube and RBR IMO with Ronald Barry Robinson and friends. I am your host, Henry Hatter. This is a part one of a two-part series entitled Politics in Michigan. Today, we're going to be discussing the ballot proposals. Today, joining us on the panel is first Ms. Denise Allen and Mr. Latrelle Holmes. Welcome to both of you.
How you doing?
Thank you. Today, we will begin with Proposal 1, and I'll read that. A referendum on Public Act of 2011, the Emergency Manager Law. Public Act 4 of 2011 would do all of the following. Establish criteria to assess the financial conditions of local units of government, including schools. Authorize the governor to appoint an emergency manager. Upon state findings of a financial emergency, and allow the EM, the emergency manager, to act in place of local government officials. Require the EM to develop financial and operating plans which may include modification or termination of contracts, reorganization of government, and determination of expenditure services and use of assets until the emergency is concluded. Should this law be approved? Denise, what do you think?
Absolutely not. At this point in time, we already are governed on a federal level by a constitution, on a state level on a constitution, and locally we have in place ordinances and things of that nature that spell out how our government is to operate. And, you know, certainly we have crisis in America totally in terms of economics. But we have the remedy to do what we need to do by having people in place as far as the checks and balance is concerned. And when that is removed, you basically have, usurped the power of the people who have been elected to serve. And for that reason, I am definitely in opposition to this emergency manager, whether it's Act 4 or whatever number they have. I'm just against it.
Latrelle, tell us what you think, really.
Well, certainly glad to be on the show with you all, and it's a delight, and certainly good evening to the listening audience. Proposal 1, first of all, even the manner that it's written is confusing. A yes vote implements the current act, Public Act 4, and a no vote in this case denies it and gives the government back to who it should be, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, made up of individuals that is elected by the constituents and supported by their constituents, and that have their constituents' best interests in mind. The Emergency Financial Managers Act does not do that. I mean, we're seeing that firsthand right here in our city. Its implementation in the other 7 cities and school districts throughout the state of Michigan has proven to be detrimental and actually has caused emergencies rather than cure emergencies. So I'm with Ms. Allen on this. I believe that this proposal should be unanimously voted down.
Well, what is the responsibility of governmental leaders to fulfill the obligation of government? They were elected to represent dollars that people have assessed the city in a balanced budget to run that city, so that that city can be able to do all of the things that are required by government. And when community leaders fail to perform those responsibilities, government fails, and it fails the people for which it represents.
That may be true to a certain degree, but what you have to look at is the fact that the revenue source has changed tremendously in this area. We've had a number of people who work for GM, for example. GM is no longer here, which was a tax base. And we have people who have been affected, you know, for every one GM job that was lost, 6 others were affected.
But those are excuses.
Those are not excuses. Those are
But
reality.
they are. Why didn't...
Listen to me, Henry.
Okay.
Let me finish, okay? What has happened, though, because of that situation, a lot of people have moved away. And so, therefore, you have less taxes and less revenue to deal with. That's your reality. You don't have the tax base that you once had.
But you need to reduce. You have financial people on your staff that advise you of when you're beginning to lose income and when you're being ineffective. And the responsibility of government is not doing its job. And people are not the recipient of the services that we agreed that they should have.
I think the implementation of emergency financial management, again, in 8 cities and school districts in the state of Michigan where it has been, has shown that it does not cure an emergency by simply cutting expenses. There needs to be shore-ups of revenue sources within these communities, and as Ms. Allen pointed out, here particularly in Flint, our main source of employment, General Motors, has made a massive departure there. But there also is unlimited boundaries that's within this legislation that is most concerning to me. And you look at its implementation, particularly in cities like Pontiac, that had an emergency financial manager that sold Silverdome, and because the interest that he sold it to actually wound up employing him, the direct beneficiaries of it many times are the EFMs themselves, and I believe that is a tremendous flaw with this public policy, that the controls is just way too broad. The former act that Flint is now yet under control of, Public Act 72, had more type of assistance mechanisms in there, in that they still had to, the emergency financial manager still had to dialogue with the elected officials, still had to dialogue with the community. Public Act 4 gave too much broad powers to where they've totally disregarded. Case in point in Flint is the question on the proven act that they did with the selling of the Genesee Towers, the pledge of giving community development block grant dollars that was meant to go to the most impoverished areas of the community, the shifting of responsibilities and salaries of the former EFM, now current city administrator, just very, very broad things that go against, as you said, the proper governance. There are ordinances that are being violated right now in Flint with those things under this broad control, and that's problematic.
Well, let's take one of the elements of what the financial manager is responsible for. It requires that he develop or she develop financial and operating plans, which may include modification and termination of contract. Mm-hmm. This is when you're in a deadlock with a system that without money you can't change. Mm-hmm. Because once these contracts are established, you can't break them in Michigan. Mm-hmm. You got to live with them, even if you don't have money. So there is a bottomless pit. Mm-hmm. We can't get past it. Okay, so what if your last comment on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, my last comment would be, I mean, to cut does not cure. I mean, and as you looked at this proposal, absolutely requires them to develop financial and operating plans, not to just cut expenses. There's a side of this that is missing. The whole methodology is to cut to the bare bones, and the fact that there should be revenue generators and job creation.
Should you go out for a referendum? Should that be the part of the responsibility of the leaders to go out with a referendum to find those sources of taxes. You don't expect for Pontiac to come into Flint and do that.
No, and we don't
whose
expect
responsibility is it?
Responsibilities of those elected government that is
I
of the
agree.
people, by the people, for the people, not in a state.
But they didn't do it. The leaders didn't do it. They didn't go to the public and say, "Hey, we need a tax increase in order to continue to fund government." But they failed to do it.
There was some.
We got to move on to the next one. I'm sorry. I wish I could take more time, but we may
I
come
had an
back
answer
to
for
this
you
one.
too.
Oh,
But that's okay.
Let's see if
Move
we
on.
can come. Now, the second proposal is a proposal to amend the state constitution regarding collective bargaining. The proposal would grant public and private employees the constitutional right to organize and bargain collectively through labor unions, invalidate existing or future state or local laws that limit the ability to join unions and bargain collectively, and to negotiate and enforce collective bargaining agreements, including employees' financial support of their unions. Laws may be enacted to prohibit unions from striking, override state laws that regulate hours and conditions of employment to the extent that these laws conflict with collective bargaining agreements. Define an employer as a person or entity employing one or more individuals. Now, Denise, how destructive this is. What's your position? How should a person vote on that? If a person had gone through it and listened to this program today and got enough information to weigh in on it, how should a person really vote?
Well, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of Michigan, who has been historically a very strong union state. And we know that with the administration that we currently have in place, they appear to be very anti-union. And because of that, I look at the fact that I myself am a part of a union, okay, as a state employee. And as it stands right now, we're not in a position to strike. We're not able to do that. However, we went to the tables in good faith and negotiated a contract. And as it stands right now, they're in the process of trying to dismantle that. And that's not good for the people who have worked very hard. And quite frankly, with all that has been coming at workers throughout the state of Michigan, they're working more with less. Okay, and so it's just totally unfair. And based on that, my position would be for us to vote in favor of it.
Okay.
I too
Latrelle?
support this particular proposal. I believe in collective bargaining. I believe our nation has benefited from collective bargaining, and actually the impetus of it was right here in our state as we built the model for the middle class. I see this as a proposal that protects jobs, and you know, if we look back over the last couple of decades with the implementation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA agreement that took all of American jobs away, I believe this type of legislation prevents that from happening, and for us being so reliant on jobs that are not sufficient to take care of communities and the individuals that make them up.
Well, you know, I apologize, but I take a different view of that.
Okay.
I think what we're creating here is a privileged class. Not all people belong to unions. There are many, particularly the vulnerable people in the community. Those of us who belong to unions. And besides, I am not against bargaining. I support the right to bargain. But I think that this goes too far. I believe that there are too many people that would be left vulnerable to a privileged class that would get all the benefits and have all of the rights of enhanced incomes, enhanced protections, both of those who are dealing with health care, with financial basis. But the rest of the population will be left outside of this big domain that will be encumbered by the protections of unions under the Constitution. I think it's dangerous. I think it's not needed. And besides, there was a law signed in 1968 by Governor Romney that allowed for the protection of teachers for collective bargaining, but it was prohibited to strike. But striking is not a part of the issue. although that law has been violated many times by people who still struck and were not punished for it. And yet there are other people looking at these laws that are tested and disrespected and stuff like that. And then you put this in the Constitution. That is encumbered.
Well, one of the clauses that you just read, as it relates to striking, it does say that there's a clause that allows the legislature to enact laws that would prohibit
because that law is already enacted.
That
was enacted in 1968.
Right, which is a good control. But still, you look at those service provider type jobs, like waitresses and things of the lower paying jobs that individuals are continually misused and underrepresented on the wage schedule. I think it at least brings some degree of fairness to a fair day's wage for a fair day's work.
Now, with the exception of Denise, and Denise earns her right. But there are many people who are work for government services, particularly those who are called people who run the government all the time and not politicians. What are they called? They are
emergency financial managers.
No. No. Those are people who sit there and do nothing but fulfill the requirements of government. They are unionized. Now those people form the bulk of those who work for government. Not people like you, Denise, because you have a managerial job and stuff like that. But you have the bulk of the people who work for government that are just there and they punch a card and they come under civil service and so on and so forth. And they have all of these great protections. Those people are protected. Now, pretty soon, and then you have all of the teachers who are protected. And then you have the people who are protected who work for industry. And but still, when you look at the pile of people that are covered by unions, there are still only a fraction of the people who are not covered by union. There is something wrong with that.
Well, the way I'm interpreting this law, though, it's giving an opportunity for others who may not have union protection to be involved in that process. Okay,
I saw them sneak that in there.
But I think it's a good thing because you're talking about, because the way you phrased some of what you said, it sounded like you're pitting us against them. We all want a decent wage.
We are pitted against them.
Right, but we need to stop that. And this is what this language will disallow, the continuation of that. You know, the middle class is being attacked. Okay, we already know that there's an underclass that has been under attack. But the middle class, which holds this country up, is being attacked. So we have to expand an opportunity for the middle class to keep the footing and elevate the footing, and also for those that are underserved and have no opportunity to engage in becoming a part of a union to be able to do so.
Now look at the last element under this proposal. It says define an employer as a person or entity employing only one person. You know,
one or
more persons. Okay. Now, how can a mom and pop start a business if they would have to be unionized? You would kill the middle class and all of its inspiration to grow. You would limit that capacity. I think this is dangerous. I think it goes too far. I think it should be, how is this? I think it should be defeated.
Well, that certainly is your opinion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got broad support from all of the unions are broadly supporting this, and I believe it's fair. It's a fair proposal.
But the bulk of the people who don't have those kind of benefits
and want to have those benefits will vote for this. Yeah. And they want to have those. They want to have these.
But they got to find the jobs first. Okay, the next proposal, a proposal to amend the state constitution to establish standards for renewable energy. The proposal would require electric utilities to provide at least 25% of the annual retail sales of electricity from renewable energy sources, which are wind, solar, and biomass, and hydropower by 2025. Limit to not more than 1% per year electric utility rates increases charged to consumers only to achieve compliance with the renewable energy standard. Allow annual extensions of the deadline to meet the 25% standard in order to prevent rate increases over the 1% limit. Require the legislature to enact additional laws to encourage the use of Michigan-made equipment and the employment of Michigan residents. Should this proposal be approved?
This is a tricky proposal. On the surface, it sounds like it's a good thing. Solar energy, biomass, hydropower, okay? 25% placed on companies. All of that sounds good. But the second part of that troubles me is that 1% that is going to encumber the populace, people who are already paying exorbitant rates on their energy bills. Again, I go back to something that I said earlier about the first and second proposal. You're dealing with people who have limited income, and those that have an income or had an income have left the area. So again, you're dealing with a small percentage of people who are unable to manage their household with the expenses that they're being encumbered with. And so to tack on that 1%, I find that troubling. Okay? I find it extremely troubling. And in my mind, I see it right now as a no vote.
And you see, I see that as only a black spot in the ointment.
Well,
very, very minuscule.
Okay.
I believe that this is a proposal that again should be supported. I've looked at it, and purportedly it could create 40,000 jobs in the state of Michigan, amass some $10 billion in new investment, be a real good catalyst on revitalizing the manufacturing industry, because then you would have a less of a reliance on coal and other fossil for fuel generation. It will allow Michigan to set the bar. We will be the first state in Michigan to actually adopt this. As the national politics, particularly our current president, has been a proponent of clean energy, clean and renewable energy, because it is the new wave in this new millennium there. And so I believe this is worth supporting.
Well, I happen to agree that this is a good proposal. I think that what this does, it will allow Michigan to find its niche. It had a big niche all of the 20th century. The automobile manufacturing made Michigan would have been the 5th largest nation in the world by 1980 if we were separated, because of the manufacturing and the automobile industry. So now Michigan's surrounded by all of this water, these resources. They have the technology. They have the skilled workforce. They have the money residuals left over from the old automobile industry to invest in this. And in 25 years, working diligently and methodically toward making this energy standard work for us, we can find a new niche and find jobs for people who currently are looking for jobs that don't have them. It would bring all kinds of jobs, like those who are without sophisticated education, engineers, managers, attorneys. All of those people will come into the fold. It creates something almost as dynamic as the automobile industry was 3 years ago.
And then it definitely would have a positive impact on health. I mean, we've got enough pollutants in the air already, and clean and renewable energy is a good concept. And I think one of the most glowing and golden opportunities that have come in a long time to the nation, and again to see Michigan to be able to be on the forefront of this is encouraging to me.
Denise and Latrelle, you have been really great discussing these issues, and you brought out issues that even I didn't know about, perspectives I didn't know, and I appreciate those perspectives, and I don't discount any of them. And you've helped to make this discussion what I think it ought to be, where people can visualize two sides of an issue. And would you like to make any particular state your thrust for the most dominant argument for any one of these proposals?
Well, I think one of the
things... You
got
30 seconds.
Okay, well, I'll say this very quickly, that I'm glad that we had this discussion about Proposal 3, because that proposal to me, again, was very troubling. But I hear what some of the things that you've said, and you've piqued my interest here. So now I will take a closer look at it, and I'm hoping that any person who is going into the polls will do that. Will take a closer look, but they will vote their conscience and their heart.
Proposal 1 is the most important proposal that has come before the state of Michigan in a very long time. It is an attack on democracy and on the right to vote. And if there's any proposal out of the 6 that really desires our really looking close at, it's the Emergency Financial Manager proposal, Proposal 1.
And that's an honest look at this proposal. And people should vote their conscience. When they come to the issue, you got to vote for yourself. You got to vote for what it means to you. And secondly, for what makes good public policy. So you can vote for something that's good for you, but not make good public policy and hurt us all.
Right.
And this is why I'm so concerned about Democrats and Republicans encouraging people to go out and vote and not understand these proposals. I want to thank you, both of you, for doing a great job today, and congratulations on your 30th wedding anniversary coming up here, Latrelle.
Thank you very much.
I wish most men could raise 30 years without 3 women, but I don't know.
Since the 11th grade in high school.
That's a wonderful thing. Congratulations to you and Mrs. Holmes.
And now the In My Opinion show must come to a close. We greatly thank our panelists here, and we thank our audience. We thank the In My Opinion show host and support staff. Until next time, stay focused.